Welcome back to Against the Cage, your MMA home for all the fight previews, recaps, and exclusive interviews that I know you're looking for. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm joined here by Scott Fontana. Our colleague Eric is out this week, but he will be back shortly. And Scott, let's talk about UFC 321, which is going on in Abu Dhabi this Saturday. Different timing than we're used to accommodate the locals. It'll be 2 p.m. main card Eastern time for us on the Eastern Seaboard. And it'll be prelims 10 a.m. starting on ESPN Plus as well as FX. All of that to accommodate the locals in Abu Dhabi. But let's talk about the main event. You talked to Tom Aspinall, the heavyweight champion, and something he mentioned with you and something he's been talking about for quite some time now is being an active champion in the heavyweight division, which we haven't seen in quite some time. How do you think that's going to play out for him or just the heavyweight champion title in the coming months and years?
So obviously, he's got to take care of business this weekend. So let's just assume for a second, just for the purpose of this exercise, that he gets past Ciryl Gane, has a good performance. He gets to go out there and fight again when he wants to. I would think the UFC, they would want to be motivated to keep Tom active, build him as an attraction in this new ESPN Plus or excuse me, Paramount Plus
Yes.
era. He's only 32. He checks a lot of marketing boxes, both in the United States and obviously in the UK, where he is from. 3 fights next year, though, I think is probably off the table. I think just the extraneous stuff with John Jones still lingering out there, Alex Pereira as a potential kind of roadblock, depending on what they want to do with those three individuals. Again, assuming he gets past Ciryl Gane here. Um, if Tom Aspinall still has the belt when 2027 comes around, I could see, especially if the John and Poatan stuff, if that's settled, I could see 3 fights actually potentially happening. One wrinkle though, Ante
Yep.
Dalia, he does not want to fight his friend. If Dalia gets in a position, which he really could in the next 12 months or so, get in a position where he would be in line for a title shot, and Tom follows through, Aspinall follows through, and he vacates the title, that obviously throws things off. So
Yeah, I mean, a few stars do have to align for that to happen, of course. But
two
well,
is realistic. I think two is realistic, though.
yeah,
Again, if they're trying to save him for the White House, it might be more like July, December for that to
save
happen.
Tom
Or
for the
excuse
White
me,
House.
June, December. If that's what they're thinking of doing. Which I spoke to Tom Aspinall this week for us. He thinks Americans ought to get priority with what comes to that, but. I mean, if they're thinking, oh, we want to do America versus Britain here, and they actually do John Jones against Tom Aspinall, which I mean, obviously they've been trying to get that forever, right? If that's how they can get John Jones back, that's what they're gonna do.
I have reservations about that actually being the matchup that they end up booking, just because, like we talked about recently, like I feel like Dana's not too hot on John Jones at the moment, and the way that I read it, at least in Tom's response during your interview, is that he's like not really all too bothered to make a fuss to get on that card. He's like, yeah, if they put me on it, if they
Exactly.
put me on it, they put me on it, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But let's keep talking about Tom because he is the champion, of course. And something that you guys also spoke on was, this layoff that he's had. In his UFC career, this is the longest layoff that he's had, not in his professional, but it's the longest one he's had in quite some time, even like you noted in the interview, longer than the one that he had from his devastating knee injury. This is 15 months. That one was just about a year. How do you think that is going to be a factor coming into this fight?
I just don't think he's gonna come in super rusty with even with the layoff being what it is. He trains a lot, right? He's kind of just like one of those eat, train, family kind of guys, if we understand it right. Um, Obviously, he's training with guys like Ante Dalia, who we mentioned before, Mick Parkin. These are both guys in the UFC's rankings, top 15 right now. He's got talented fighters he sees every day. And frankly, think about it. How many times is he getting into the cage and man, he's logging like 15, 25 minutes? It's zero. It is zero times that
Yeah.
he's doing this. So we're talking about a guy who shows up, he works for 4 to 6 minutes, if that, and then he'll fight again in a few months. So I don't know how much the rust is going to be there. I think that camps are just a focused way of training, right? He's still training every day. I wouldn't worry about it at all. What do you think, though? What do you think of the rust here? Do you think there's
Yeah.
something or no?
So I completely agree, and that's like something that he talked about with you is like, yeah, I just get to train like way more, and it's not in like a fight camp. Like I'm not, putting unneeded like stress on my body, so to speak. And like you mentioned, he's got this camp of like heavyweight and light heavyweight killers that he's training with, and getting these rounds in with, and he kind of said that that's like an advantage to having this long layoff. So I think like yeah, like you said, the ring rust in this scenario, and I like how you put it. He goes in there for like 4 to 6 minutes. It's not like he is gonna go in there feeling like he's missed out on valuable octagon time.
And another thing here too, Jake, is the fact that like Ciryl Gane, it's not like he just fought 3 or 4 months ago. We haven't seen him since December. It's been a long time since he fought as well. How much of a giant difference in terms of the ring rust potential is there for Ciryl Gane, who fought what 5 months later, 4 or 5 months later, just about? I don't think it's gonna change a whole lot there. And also, Tom Aspinall is only 32. I mentioned this before. Ciryl Gane's 35. It's not like he's a spring chicken.
Yeah,
He's the older guy. Heavyweights do last a lot longer. We understand that, right? So I still don't think age is much of a factor here, but I think it's especially a non-factor when we're talking about some of the younger heavyweights.
absolutely. And you alluded to it just a few moments ago. Like Ciryl, his fights do last a little bit longer. That's something that Tom and you talked about a bit as well. But another thing that I want to touch on is not just that sort of facet of Cyryl's game that you might notice. You also might notice that he has somewhat of a grappling deficiency, at least in some examples that we've seen in his championship fights, his two previous ones, famously in the Francis Ngannou fight at the end of that one, and then at the very start of the John Jones fight, we saw some clear deficiencies there. And Tom is a pretty good grappler, as we've seen in the short time that he's had in the octagon. What side of the coin do you see playing a bigger factor into this fight for Ciryl Gane? Like, it can only really go one of two ways. How do you think that's going to play out?
I mean, there's a couple other permutations, right? But I think we're looking at, yes, these are the biggest factors, right? And I think everything we have seen of Gane, everything you've outlined, even go back to that fight in December, close decision against Alexander Volkov. I think everything suggests he still has trouble defending the takedown. Can he show up and have made a lot of progress in the last 10 months? Absolutely. No question about it. And Tom Aspinall, he doesn't have a distinct wrestling background, but he is a very well-rounded guy. And I would argue that if you're well-rounded and you've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of everything, and he also has some standout power in his striking, right? And some standout submissions for the heavyweight division. It makes things a lot easier when you want to transition because you've got to worry about a lot of different factors in that fight. So I would be surprised if that grappling deficiency wasn't a monster decider here. It is kind of the crux of the issue. But you do have to wonder though, Jake, and I kind of wonder what you think of this, what is going to happen if he's able to drag Tom Aspinall into those deeper waters. He has a lot of experience in 5 round fights going into the fifth, round and realistically, he's fought into the third round a lot too, which we still again haven't seen from Tom Aspinall.
Yeah,
So
he's never seen the third round
I
at all.
no, he is not. Well, not as a pro. He had
Yeah.
we mentioned it in the interview. He fought 3 rounds amateur, and they were 3 minute rounds. So he's never fought past 10 minutes. Period. That is
Okay.
that is an actual definitive fact. He's never had to fight for more than 10 minutes. I'd be surprised if Tom Aspinall gasses out, but I'm curious. What do you think? Just let your imagination go a little
Yeah.
bit. We have to kind of play that game a little bit. What do you think this fight looks like if we go past those 10 minutes?
So let's just say Ciryl Gane has developed Jose Aldo level takedown defense, basically, and the fight goes. Let's just say it stays on the feet, and they keep because I don't see it going long if it goes to the ground. So I'm gonna just say that it stays on the feet in this figurative imaginatory scenario.
Sure. Devil's advocate we're doing here, yeah.
That's a really interesting thought. Because that implies that Tom's not knocking him out, right? Which we've seen he's very
Which
capable
is
of
also
doing.
not, I mean, goodness sake, he lasts 10 minutes in there in the striking and it's not gone down and he hasn't knocked him out too. I think we're still surprised, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think it just shows how dangerous Tom Aspinall is, just from what we're talking about here. If it does go to a decision, it's got to be that Ciryl Gane is the fight is in his element. Like he's executing his game plan. So the longer this fight goes, without knowing necessarily what's going on in the fight, I'd say that favors Ciryl Gane for sure. What do you think?
I would think that if I'm sitting here and I'm trying to figure out what Gon's game plan ought to be to kind of avoid some of those pitfalls, right? Not getting hit by the power and keeping the fight standing. Obviously, I think you want to keep him on the outside. You want to keep Tom Aspinall on the outside. Kicks are a good way to do it, but also that puts you vulnerable to being caught for a takedown. So probably we're talking about like the calf kicks and that kind of thing. Some of those low kicks that are a little harder to catch. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky assignment. I think Gon does know how to do a point fighting style. So if he's able to drag it out, probably things are at least going okay for him, right? But we'll
Yeah.
see. That's going to be a hard thing for him to clear.
Yeah, the only other thing that I could see, and you didn't say that it has to like be on the feet or whatever. I just assumed if they did go to the ground, he would get submitted. But maybe he's been really working on his submission defense. If it does end up going longer, it could be a situation where it's just Tom, mauling him on the ground. Who knows? But let's get into our sports entertainment rating to wrap up this heavyweight fight. I'll get started first, and Scott, you've got Eric's one, so maybe you'll give his. So I'll say for mine, for a sporting aspect, this is tough because John's not here, Alex isn't in heavyweight just yet. I'll give this one a 4. I feel like a 3 could be warranted. It's definitely not a 5, just because Volkov won that fight against Ciryl Gane, or at least it was like
in your head,
it
did, but also there was an official result.
There was an official result. I'm gonna give it a 4. I feel like that's an okay one to give. For entertainment rating, I'm gonna give this one a 4. I'll give it a 4. It's a Tom Aspinall fight. They always end and finish, so I'll give it a 4 for that one. How about you?
So I'll go Eric first. I'll close out. Okay. So Eric gave a 2 for the sports rating.
Yeah.
And he gave a 2 for the entertainment rating. And to quote our friend here, heavyweight division is at an all-time low for the sport! Exclamation point. Eric is very down on this fight.
He does not like it.
So, hates this fight. My goodness. I went the other way, guys. I have a 5 for sports rating.
Okay.
I think these are the 2 best heavyweights. I understand you can feel one way or the other about how the decision went the last time.
Mm-hmm.
But be that as it may, he has the win. And when it comes down to it, after a year or so, we kind of tend to just forget about the controversies of these divisions or these decision fights, and we just accept them. That's been the nature of everything. We get really mad, and then a couple years later, it's like, oh, he's got this win over him because we don't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm going with 5. I think it's warranted here. It's champion versus 2. We're not questioning who's the champion, and we're certainly looking at him as I think the highest ranked of the heavyweight contenders. Period. So in the UFC. So I'm going with a 5. The only little wrinkle I'll give you is if you still think that Francis Ngannou is the best heavyweight in MMA. That kind of pushes it down.
That was in the back of my head.
The question is here. But how much is he fighting anymore in MMA? He's fought one time since he left. It's been several years.
Yeah.
And look, when he left, I considered him the number 1 heavyweight in the world still. Mm-hmm. But I think inactivity, at a certain point, you're just looking at it as like you can't really put him up there anymore.
Yeah, if you throw him in there.
That's where I put that.
Yeah. Okay, but what about your entertainment rating?
My entertainment rating is also a 5, and the reason is because look, we're talking about this fight that we're going to be kind of surprised if it goes past 10 minutes. Yeah. What does that say? It's going to be a fun finish.
It's going to be good.
What do we want? I think we got a 5 here. I'm very excited for this one. I love this fight. So I've got a 10 on this one, man. Scott, I've got a 10 rating.
A 10
Eric's got a 4.
Fight? My God.
Dude, high level heavyweight is the best.
I'm just
when
teasing.
it goes just a like it's kind of like one of those things that's very top heavy, right? So you got a couple of fights up here that make it fantastic, and then very quickly it's like, man, this sucks. So, so I got a 10. Eric's got a 4. You've got a what? What did you end up with? A
An
7 or
8.
8? An 8. So we're at 22. We're at about a 7.3 rating, which this is like the most
Heavily
disparate one
dragged
we've ever
down.
had. You were in the middle, and then I'm at the top, and Eric just hates this one. So
Yeah.
wherever you're watching it this weekend, Eric, I hope you like it better than you're expecting. I think you will.
I think it's impossible for it to not over deliver for Eric.
Well, yeah, he's kind of got it so low, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
we'll see. But let's get on to the co-main event. Virna Jandiroba taking on Mackenzie Dern for the vacant strawweight title. And that's because the former champion Zhang Weili is going up to face Valentina Shevchenko at 125 for the strawweight title at Madison Square Garden next month at
Our neck of
UFC,
the woods. Yep.
our neck of the woods at UFC 322. And listen, Zhang was very, very dominant at 115 as a champion. I think we saw that in her last win over Tatiana Suarez, that she was like more than welcome to go up to 125 and challenge for that belt. So with that being said, do you think that whoever wins this fight this weekend between Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern, are they going to be the rightful best in the world 115 strawweighter in that division, or are they going to have to do something spectacular to kind of win over fans and have the sentiment of fans that they are the best in the world at that division?
I think particularly if Mackenzie Dern wins, there's going to be more work to do, and not necessarily because like look, if Mackenzie Dern wins, people like her. Like she's a more notable fighter in that weight class, right? Probably the most notable we have left in terms of public interest. So if she wins, there's certainly more interest there, but she's not had this dominant run to get here. She's been very up and down. She's only won 2 fights in a row. Before that, she was 2-4 in her last 6. So this is not necessarily someone who comes in with a giant head of steam in terms of that. We have been waiting for a long time for Mackenzie Dern to get to this level, right? So at least there's that. But I think it's going to be more like if Jandiroba wins, especially to a high degree, I think it's going to be a little easier for people to look at her and say, okay, that's the best 115 pounder in the world. She'll have won 6 in a row, beating many of the division's best along the way. In that, she'll have avenged one of her 3 UFC losses, one of which was also to retired 2-time champion Carlos Barza. So this is a good sturdy record that you could stand behind and say, look, we're looking at a really fantastic strawweight. Uh, but I think either way, we're still looking at Tatiana Suarez kind of lurks there
Yeah.
behind as kind of that. Probably a lot of people still look at her as maybe the 1B contender right now. So I think probably we're waiting until that fight comes, and it's got to come next. That has to be the next for whoever it is.
Hmm.
Once that clears, we're definitely looking at, okay, this is the best 115 pounder in the world who's still fighting in that weight class.
Yeah, 100%. I like how you brought up Tatiana, because like it's just a testament to Zhang Weili how that fight went. Like Tatiana was talked about like the female version of like Khabib with her grappling, right? And Zhang Weili
Health
just,
issues and all this
yeah,
stuff has kind of robbed her a little bit of that,
yes,
right? For
yeah,
now.
of course. But even with all that, Tatiana was like, looked at as like the only person that could get it done against Zhang Weili, or maybe the most likely person to get it done. So I totally agree with what you're saying. Whoever comes away with the victory over this, and then I totally agree. Tatiana should be, or I would like Tatiana to be the next person up for that title shot. I don't even think has she
So,
had
so
a
you would say probably coming away from this fight that maybe you're still skeptical
yes.
about who's the best at 115. Okay.
Yeah, Virna is a easier sell maybe just because she's been
Right.
on that run. Mackenzie, like pretty much echoing what you said. It's been up and down. She's on a 2-fight winning streak now, and it'll be 3 if she wins this one. But there's sort of an asterisk there.
She wins fun fights too, so that's why it's sometimes like one of those things that people are not going to mind anyway.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, she wins and finishes like the armbar one. I can't remember where that was. It's just yeah, she's a fun fighter.
And she'll mix it up. I mean, we've seen her get bloody a lot, and she's very willing to take a punch to give a punch
Yes,
too.
that's
So
something that you
that's
two spoke
yeah,
about. That was
exactly.
that's absolutely a great point. Getting to Virna again, she believes that Zhang Weili will eventually come back down to strawweight, win or lose, which I don't know how you feel about that one, Scott. I have different thoughts, but I'll get yours first.
What do you know my thoughts? We'll get to yours,
No,
but I'll
no,
give you
different
mine
thoughts
right
than
now.
Virna.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see, I see. Okay.
yeah.
Well, what I want to know what you think, actually. You tell me.
I don't see Zhang Weili fighting that much longer if she wins the. Honestly, I don't see her fighting that much longer regardless. I think that this would be a cherry on top for her career. I don't know how much more there is left for her to achieve as a female fighter. I mean, she's had quite a few title defenses at strawweight, and if she goes and gets 125, a 125 belt, that's the only the second woman who's been a double champion as far as I know, next to Amanda Nunes.
Two weight classes, yeah, not at the
Yeah,
same time, unfortunately,
right,
because it
right.
doesn't seem like the UFC
They
wants
don't
to
do
do
that
that
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah. So I don't see what else she could do if she won that belt. And if she loses it, that's maybe a little bit of a different story. I could see her going back down to strawweight and being like, "All right, give me that back." What about you?
Man, I disagree with you on
Okay.
the if she wins the belt up there. I think if she wins the belt, why wouldn't she keep fighting and try to defend it a little bit? I do think she likes to fight. You know, we don't see her fight all that often, and I don't know all the factors involved in that, to be honest, but we just don't see her fight that often. Could it be that she's able to be a little more active? She's able to get some new contenders up there? I don't know. I'd be curious to see.
Hmm.
But I would say I feel like Zhang's work just isn't done. I kind of disagree with you. I think she's someone who really wants to pursue greatness. That's what it looks like. Maybe I'm wrong. She might have aspirations outside of the cage, and I don't know what the world is like in China for her. I mean, I think she's doing very well over there and is very popular. So maybe fighting more is what continues to keep that up. But I would say if she beats Shevchenko, again, I don't think she's going anywhere. I think she's going to keep fighting. If she loses, yeah, I could see her coming back down and returning right away. And obviously, she would walk into a title shot. That's the way it would be. Yeah, it doesn't matter what
Yeah.
Tatiana Suarez wants to do or what they want to do with Tatiana Suarez. They're going to have Zhang Wei Li fight as long as it lines up the schedule wise. That's kind of the only thing, right? So,
Yeah.
I like a lot. There's a lot of stakes in that fight at Madison Square Garden.
There
So, I'm interested in that.
100%. Yeah. And you know, I do agree with you in terms of the fact that if she did win that 125 belt, I could definitely see her try to chase greatness, like as you're saying. Like, she's looking to build quite a legacy. I mean, she already has quite a legacy, but if she gets that belt, I mean, I guess more where my head was at was if she just gets even like one or two defenses at that flyweight belt, like there's an argument that like she is like neck and neck with Amanda Nunes, I would say.
Hard disagree.
Okay. I
You
don't know.
you don't know that much about Chris Cyborg, apparently. What are we doing here? She's amazing.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
That's a hard one, man.
Okay,
I'm against you on that.
showing my infancy in my watching
Oh,
of
maybe you know
MMA.
what? Maybe I'm gonna make one of their homeworks is gonna be a Chris Cyborg run one day. I'm gonna put together some fights that you need to watch of her and understand the terror that she was a long time ago and still remains to this day because she hasn't gone anywhere.
You know, the thing is right when I started really getting into the sport in 2019, it was, I believe, UFC 232 was when Nunes knocked out Cyborg. That was just
Eat
before the
Cyborg,
John
yeah.
Jones fight, right?
Hilariously, your main impression of one of the greatest fighters of all time is the 1 minute
That's
she
what I'm
just didn't look all
saying.
that
That's
good.
like my I think my image of her is a little bit distorted. So,
Well, we'll pull you back on that one, I
okay,
think.
there we go. If the viewers are looking for a discussion on the female MMA goat, they got it.
There you
But
go. Throw
let's
it in the
talk.
comments, guys.
Let's talk about this fight. Just one more thing on it. UFC analyst and coach analyst veteran Dean Thomas, who is unapologetically honest about his takes, even though he is a UFC employee. Essentially, he was on the Paper podcast, Anthony Smith podcast, and he said that this was the most insignificant title fight rather, in UFC history. Or sorry,
Recent memory,
I'm
I
gonna do
think
that
he
again.
kind of couched it, right? I think he said, no, it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll keep going.
recent memory is kind of what he couched it as, which is I think is fair.
Yeah, but I have to ask, and he did say that it would be a marketing nightmare if Jandiroba won, which teach their own. But Scott, I gotta ask you, what do you think about that? True or false? Do you agree with Dean?
True. Yeah, it really would be a pretty bad thing if Virna Jandiroba won, because the UFC has made a concerted point of not featuring her because I don't think they see a lot of marketability with her. Her fight style, her personality, they just don't grab attention. I mean, last time she fought on a pay-per-view main card was 5 years ago when she fought Mackenzie Dern. So they
Yeah.
don't feature her, even though she's winning fights against great women, terrific women at this weight class. She does have a headliner in that time, her only time on the main card in the last 5 years at the Apex. Where was that fight with Mackenzie Dern? At the Apex. They don't put her in front of crowds very often in prominent spots because they clearly have not seen a whole lot of potential to bring in viewers and eyeballs and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a no-brainer that the UFC would be offering silent prayers up that Mackenzie Dern will win this rematch as well. So yeah, I think it would be a pretty bad thing for them. I don't know if it's the most insignificant title fight. It's pretty close though because we're talking about it really is pretty close. I think there's a little bit of there leeway there because again, we're talking about the dominant champion left. Just like a division in her wake. Everybody, not that she beat Mackenzie Dern or that she even beat Virna Jandiroba. There's at least that kind of, oh, how might they do kind of thing. But we had a dominant champion who left uh, for some greater accolades that in pursuit. And then two women who are going to fight in there that we're not even saying, man, these are the next two best, right?
Yeah, I will say when I first saw that Dean said that, I was like, it's a little harsh. And then like
Harsh but
yeah,
fair.
and the devil's advocate in my brain was like trying to think, and I was like, wait, I actually can't come up with anything. Like, I guess I do
Yeah.
have to agree.
It's
Um,
harsh but fair.
yeah, but in terms of his comments on Virna Jandiroba, I would say not a whole lot of character, unfortunately, and like it's unfortunate because like she's on this very good streak, and like she is rightfully challenging for this title now that
Terrific
Zhang Wei
fighter.
Li,
Yeah, and,
yeah,
and I think she would have been next for Zhang Weili, right?
100%. Yeah. And to speak if Mackenzie won the title, I think the UFC is absolutely gunning for that. Like it's there. This is one of those situations where it's like Sean O'Malley when he's fighting, Aljamain Sterling. There's like a clear person that they're like they want to be there just because she's like one of
To a
the
much higher degree too, because I
yeah.
think Aljo, at least he's got some personality and that kind of thing. Maybe he's not their favorite type of person. There's the UFC type of personality that they kind of like, right? And I
Hmm.
don't know that Aljo fits directly in that box, but he has a little bit to him, right? And he had some runs, he had some headliners and that kind of thing. We're starting to develop him as like maybe a potential greatest bantamweight of all time when he
Yeah.
arrived there. But yes, you're right. They wanted Sean O'Malley to win that fight.
Yeah, and then I feel like Mackenzie Dern has to be one of the biggest female fighters in the sport, like just through her personality and her style, and you know, people in the comments probably say her looks and all that. So I we'll see how this one plays out if the UFC's happy about it or not. But let's get into our sports entertainment rating for this fight. I'm gonna give this one from a sporting perspective, and it's hard because Zhang Weili is no longer a strawweight, right? So
Hmm.
I'm gonna give this one a. I'm gonna give this one a 4. I'm gonna give this one a 4 with the information that like Zhang Weili is out, like you can't consider her in there.
That
Enter-
context, sure.
Entertainment rating, I'll give it a 2. I'm going to give it a 2. I'm just not that hyped up for it for obvious reasons, but Mackenzie Dern is coming into this fight and she has good moments like we were talking about. Like she's going in there willing to make it a slugfest. She's got submission victories and finishes as well. But Scott, what do you think?
So I'll give you Eric's first.
Mhm.
Once again, Eric offered a 3 for the sports rating cause I like grappling. I think we knew that about Eric.
Yes,
And then a 1 in terms of entertainment.
it's fair.
So he's even less hyped for this fight probably than the other one. And obviously Eric, we always see him kind of look at the entertainment through the window of box office, right? And
Yes.
and that and there is no box office here. That just isn't. That's plain fact, right?
No.
We're talking about it because of the other way.
Yeah.
Um, Me personally, so he's got a 4. I'm going with a 3 from the sports perspective because I think Zhang Weili not being in the picture, even though I still view her as the number one straw weight, and realistically, she still is listed on the UFC's website as the champion. I think that will immediately go away. I think this is procedural. We're just having her
Yes.
hold the belt technically, so it's not truly vacant, but it is
Hmm.
vacant. Um, so I've got that, and again, I think if we were looking at a situation where we've got the two best contenders going at it, like if it was Virna Jandiroba against Tatiana Suarez right away, I think I would feel more comfortable with this being a 4
Hmm.
at least, but it's more of a 3 because we're going down to probably the next best contender who hasn't really had a kind of a shot at Virna in a little while, and again, someone who's beaten her. So I'll give it a 3 for that. 2 for the entertainment rating. And the reason I went with 2 is because I did rewatch that first fight. And honestly, decent fight. It really is a decent fight. I could see there being potential for it being even better, potentially, because we didn't get a lot of those. What probably would have been more interesting are ground scenarios
Hmm.
with these two women. They're both grapplers.
Yep.
Obviously Dern's grappling is more of the competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion level grappling, whereas Virna has that MMA grappling. Mackenzie kind of offered that breakdown a little bit too when we interviewed her for the beginning of the week as well. I think there's potential that we'll come away with this fight and be pretty reasonably entertained. But yeah, there's no juice there. So I've got a 5,
That word juice
and
keeps
Eric's got a
coming up.
4. Yeah, exactly. It's not secret juice this time. But so we had a 4 and a 5. What did you have? What did you end up with?
It was 4 and a 2, so 6.
So a 6, 4, 5. It's an average of a 5, and
Okay.
that probably speaks to how this has got to be our lowest. This has to be our lowest this year.
I think probably it is.
Probably by like a margin too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think that's probably fitting, right?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the other fights on this card that we are a little bit more excited about. Scott, what is your fight to watch?
I'm going with Alexander Rakic against Asmat Murzakanov. I like this fight because I think there's a couple of things that could come out of it that'd be pretty interesting, right? Murzakanov, unbeaten finisher at 205. He hits hard. He's on the rise. Rakic, he's lost 3 straight, right? But all of those are to people who have held the light heavyweight title in the last few years. So there's not really shame in those losses. This is first time coming down and fighting someone a little more lower ranked. He also hasn't won in 4.5 years. He's had health issues. I don't know what he's going to be, but if he bounces back, he starts putting himself right back in the mix there. So big stakes for both, and I think the fight actually will deliver.
All right, all right. And Eric, of course, is out, but he did share his Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Bautista, and very, very excited for this one. I am
It's a good
not
fight.
so much box office as Eric. For me, the most interesting fights and like what gets me excited about fights is like stakes. Like
Hmm.
that's my thing. For
I'm more like that too,
yeah,
to some degree.
I love it. So this one has stakes all around. Like it, if Umar wins this fight, he's right back there. At least he could be. Maybe you could argue one more, but I don't even know who would be up against, right? And Mario,
Mm,
he is a shoe in if he wins this fight. So, yeah.
sure.
And then for me, I've got Ikram Aliskerov versus Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle. This one, I
Iron
just feel
Turtle.
like it's gonna be a fun fight. Like these two guys, they're exciting fighters, and I just can't see a scenario where this doesn't end up being at least like a slugfest or a 15-minute barn burner could be good, or
Mm,
no.
I could see no. Believe me, I could see the potential for it, but I
Yeah.
I can also see the other side. I guess I would count your expectations just enough because I don't
Fair
want you to be
enough.
disappointed, my friend.
You know what? Sometimes it does. It's two sides of one coin, right?
Mm,
But we'll see how that one goes. I'm praying for the former. But Scott,
sure.
let's get into our event rating. What do we have for this weekend?
We've got a 95. This
Oh,
is a card that I don't think people understand how stacked it actually is with elite talent. The main card in particular, it's like it's all top 10, top 5 guys or champions and women as well fighting in there, except for the fight that I just mentioned, which I think is also very fascinating. And they're both kind of in that top 20 with potential to go even higher up there. This is really deep for a main card. And also, I mean, there's a lot of fights on the prelims. I mean, I think we've got a lot of reasonably ranked talent, top 50 kind of level guys, and yeah, more men. I think the women are a little less ranked that are down there, but I think we have a sleeping giant. I think a lot of people just look at this as like they're only interested in the heavyweight title fight. except for Eric, who is not. And I, yeah, I think we've got a real sleeping giant here with a lot of potential
I'm
for this
looking
to
through.
deliver
It's
a lot.
insane. It is
It
crazy.
really is.
Like,
People are sleeping on it. They're gonna wake up and they're gonna literally wake up on the Eastern Seaboard and start watching. Or on the West Coast too. It'll be 7 a.m. over there. They'll get roll out of bed. They'll watch some fights and be like, "Yo, these are good. I'm starting
it's
the day right."
it's ridiculous. I'm gonna be waking up a little bit or I probably have to wake up earlier to get like my run in early on Saturday just so that I could start watching these on time, you know.
I will miss some of this because I'm coaching soccer in the morning. Usually, my UFC watching is not interrupted by coaching youth soccer in the mornings, but it will be.
It is what it, well, you know what? At least you'll
I'm
be
not
getting in,
complaining.
yeah.
I like midday fights. It's a
Yeah.
little easier.
We'll be
I'll
getting
catch
some
up on
earlier.
those, and we've got the nice afternoon main card. I'm up for that. I like that.
Yeah, get to go to bed a little bit earlier. But yeah, it just speaks to the quality of this card. 95. God, that is a high one. Is that
It's the second highest
second
ranked of the
highest?
year.
Yes.
There's like four cards that are all like 95, 96 this year. They've put the UFC has just gone all in on making pay-per-view, particularly main cards, incredibly must watch.
Yeah.
And I think it's smart.
And it's kind of ironic because pay-per-view is not going to be a thing anymore. So we'll hopefully they continue
Going
with
out
that
with a
trend.
bang.
Yes, they are. So Scott, I think that wraps up UFC 321, especially because our good friend Eric is out. No three bets in 3 minutes this week. Scott and I
Figure out how to gamble your money away on your own time, guys.
Yeah.
Or I think Eric probably has a preview coming. I'm not sure if he does or not, but keep your eye on Eric's social media.
Yes.
He might have some things.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk about last weekend, what happened at Vancouver. A few controversies. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's talk about the main event. Brendan Allen coming away with a win over Reinier de Ridder. It was a stoppage
After the fourth round,
Yeah,
corner stoppage, right? Yeah, they threw it
technically
in.
retirement because Reinier de Ridder did not go out for the fifth round, and he was catching a lot of flack for that. But I mean, the guy fought 5 times in 365 days, so I think
Right.
maybe give the guy a little bit of a break. But in terms of Brendan Allen, let's talk about him. Do you think that he's arrived in this small elite group of middleweights? Not necessarily, number one contender, but that there's that group of guys that you can really put into that conversation. What do you think?
I think he moved up in status from this, like without question. But I think RDR probably lost some status. He took a big hit because of the way he faded. So I almost think they kind of met a little bit in the middle. That neither one of them should be on that short list of the contenders anymore or yet. In each man's case, I would still rank Israel Adesanya, who I would still put in like that elite group until he comes back again. I'm not writing him out just because he lost to the guy who may or may not be fighting for the title next in Nasruddin Imavov. I think he should be well ahead, firmly ahead of Brendan Allen, and that's not what the goofy UFC Reynolds rankings panel has right now. So yeah, I don't think he's there yet, and definitely RDR has dropped out from that group, but he was in ever so briefly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that he's like, yeah, he's maybe one win away from getting that title shot. It's just like tough to say who, because like what? No, because Fluffy Hernandez and him just fought. It's kind of it's a little bit clustered over there.
There are a lot of things blocking the path of Brendan Allen right now.
Yeah.
If he comes out and he gets another big win, I mean, hey, things are different. But
Yeah.
I don't think we can do it yet. It's a good win, and it certainly helps him a lot. But
He might have
because I
to-
think he went from kind of that area of being on the very outside, right? We still kind of looked at him as like, I don't know that he'd been fallen into that kind of like you're stuck as a gatekeeper kind of thing that we sometimes do to fighters.
Yeah.
I don't think he was there yet because he still has some momentum and honestly is still a little bit on the come up. This was a big win. This was his biggest win of his career, so it moves him forward, but it doesn't jump him all the way up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Reinier de Ridder. What do you think went wrong in that fight? I mean, he started off very well in the first round, and things did not go his way after that. What do you think went wrong?
Man, I don't know that it's necessarily the 5 fights catching up to him like you kind of alluded to a bit. I think there is something to be said for that. I think that's a good observation, Jake, but I don't know that that's why he like kind of ran out of steam here, right? And that's not what you were saying. But I think really it's just look, the guy he lost the fight in him. I mean, he didn't quite get it in the first round. He had a really nice first round. He was looking very good. He
Hmm.
won the first round. I was very stunned to see the way that fight completely turned. And man, it's really hard to figure what it was that actually caused him to lose either his energy or his spirit. Is it the weight cut? I don't know. I mean, he cuts a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's what caught up to him, and maybe the pace of it just didn't happen there. So I don't know, but like, can you imagine how bad though this fight would have gone if he'd still had fought Anthony Fluffy Hernandez as was originally supposed to be? I mean, this is basically Fluffy's MO. He goes in there and he breaks you down. He breaks your will. This would have gone even nastier potentially.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, goodness. I mean, it
I,
was it was
I would
weird.
also add. Oh, no, Pell, go on. I'll finish my
I
thought.
was just gonna say, in terms of like the what went wrong, it was weird. I honestly couldn't even tell you what went wrong, and like
Yeah,
like you were kind of saying, it's like it's maybe this, it could be that. There's like a lot of things that you could think about, but there's no clear answer. It was just strange seeing him.
that that's
Yeah,
going to be for him and his team to determine and all that kind of stuff. And he's going to have to search from within. But one thing I would add though, is I see his path completely blocked now to becoming UFC champion at middleweight, right? I don't think he's going to be able to get past that hump. This was a really bad look. It's a very hard thing to come back from. Um, I would think though he should have better stamina up at 205. He is massive for middleweight. We talked about it, I believe, last week, right? Um, I think if he was inclined to move up there, that really ought to be where he goes because I think he might have the potential to go on a little bit more of a run up there. He's got a lot of skills. As long as his cardio and his energy and spirit and all that are going to hold up there, I think he could go pretty far. But middleweight doesn't look like the answer.
yeah, and you referenced it, like he cuts a heck of a lot of weight, so lightweight might help in terms of the
Light heavyweight.
cardio. Or sorry, that's what I mean. Light heavyweight. That could very well help in terms of his cardio, which it looks like that's what it was that was affecting him to not go out for that next round, but you never know. Could be something else. But
You're not
let's
in their heads, you know?
yeah, you don't yeah, because you don't know if it's like some other injury that he's just like not doing. But to the best of my knowledge and what I was seeing, it seemed like a cardio thing. Um, as far as the middleweight title picture, we kind of already referenced this, but where do you think this shakes out with that picture? It's pretty clustered up. It's got to be Nasser Dinimov next, right? And then what else does it look like from
It
there?
has to be. There's no more cluster.
Yeah,
Everything got cleared up. We had kind of like the makings of a mini tournament. There was going to be some drama, and all of a sudden now we have this scenario where literally the only answer is Nasruddin
yeah.
Imavov, health permitting, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know when that's going to happen. If it happens kind of on the earlier side of the year, I think that would probably be at least start setting up that next group of who that could be. And I'll throw an idea out there for kind of that next man up kind of deal. Here's a fight I like.
Hmm.
Dricus Du Plessis against Fluffy Hernandez. I
Yes,
think it's
yeah.
a big test for DDP's wrestling progress. See how that's come along. And obviously, it would go a long way to making a rematch actually something people could conceive as being interesting because he needs to answer that wrestling question. Or you get the other side where you get Fluffy Hernandez picks up the biggest win of his career and makes a very obvious title fight that would be a little interesting, I think. So I like that booking. I don't know. What do you think of it?
I love it. No, I think it's really good. I do.
Okay.
Duplessis, I feel like he'd have no problem going into that fight. Like he wants to get that title back, and Fluffy's the guy to beat if you want to do that, right? There's what
Hmm.
bigger win could he get at middleweight right now, right? And Fluffy, I just like that matchup with Chimaev so much. I feel like if there is someone who's going to do it, Fluffy's style, I think, is probably the most threatening to that. So, and
I
that
think you want
just
that
makes
fight on
sense.
a main card, like a pay-per-view main card, or make it a 5 round main event
100%.
somewhere where people are and not
Yeah.
at the apex.
No, I agree. I honestly think that would be a very solid either co-main or tertiary fight if there's like two belts on the line for a card and you've got a stacked three fights on whatever that card is
Maybe,
right then.
hey, here's an idea I'll throw out. I don't know how realistic it is, but I'll throw it out there. This fight, you've got Dricus Du Plessis against Fluffy Hernandez, headlining in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how realistic is they're going to get a pay-per-view there anytime soon, but maybe they do a fight night. Maybe like a really stacked fight night with their home town guy or their home countryman, Dricus du Plessis.
I feel like we haven't heard so much with how that's going. It's been a while since we've gotten any news, right?
I'm sure there's a billion levels of politics involved in that kind of thing and dealing with other countries. Who
Hey,
knows?
PFL did it.
I'm not as well versed. Yes, they did. They did. That's true.
I feel
But
like if
they have different levels of venue that they want, right? The UFC is looking for something specific,
yeah, that's true.
and TFL is has different ideas of that.
Yeah, that would be I would love that. But let's talk about some of the controversies that I mentioned earlier. We got to talk about long time. Well, first off, this is bit of a new segment that we're reviving from your old show, the Couchside Judges, titled Adventures in Officiating, which I don't doubt will come up again and again as they do in MMA.
From time to time.
Sadly, it's a thing that happens. um, Longtime referee Dan Marigliata was involved in not just one, but two bouts that were high points of controversy. Let's talk about Kyle Nelson versus Matt Fravola. In that one, he, according to him, thought he stopped the fight when he heard the horn. There was 3 seconds left on the clock, and at the same time, Matt Fravola was pretty much getting finished by Kyle Nelson at that point. Like, if it was a stoppage, no one would have been upset, and actually no one did get upset at the time because they thought it was a stoppage until very shortly afterwards. Everyone is very confused to see that the next round was going to start, and that it did, and then they went another 2 rounds, right? And then let's talk about Kevin Holland. I want to say there was 3 groin strikes. There were 3.
I think it was two. I think it was two, if I'm not
I think this
mistaken.
was the
Was
third.
there a third? Oh, was it a
You know
third?
what?
I lost count.
You know what? I'll put it
Numbers are
on.
hard.
I'll put it on the screen. That's
We'll
something
figure that out.
we
Yeah,
got to
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure we get that right. But multiple. How about that? Multiple groin strikes.
Multiple.
And this one being something that floored Kevin pretty much for the entire 5 minutes. And then Dan Marigliata asks if he's ready to go. If you watch the fights, you know what happened. But Scott, I got to ask you, the one that you seem to take the most issue with on your social media was the Matt Fravola fight. Just talk to me about that one. What grinded your gears the most about this one?
Like it's just a massive mistake. If let's take Dan Mergliot at his word, and let's say he assumed that he heard the noise, right? He heard the horn. He thought it was over 3 seconds earlier than it was supposed to. That is a giant mistake. I mean, he's a veteran official. He's been doing this a very, very long time. We're trusting him in there to do it right, and he robbed this fight of 3 entire seconds. You know, you've got to be able to do, especially in a scenario where there's a potential finish actually happening. You got to listen more closely. I mean, that's just the way it is. We're expecting that of you. You can make a judgment call here and there, and we can question it, but you can at least kind of back it up and say, hey, my experience says this. This is just a dumb mistake. It's bad. This wasn't necessary. I wasn't there. I will say that. But he's been in some very loud arenas before, so I don't know if this plays if it was rocking in Vancouver to a higher degree than some of these places that he's worked before. I gotta think no. So I don't know what the deal was. It's a bad job there. If Devil's Advocate, it was something else where he, thought he stopped it, but then maybe he didn't think it was the right time to stop it and he kept it going. I don't think
Right.
that's what happened. That would be a whole nother level of mistake, but this is really bad. And you just can't see that at this level. And I think we're just really lucky, right, that Kyle Nelson went on to win the fight. It didn't affect anything. All's well that ends well, and we're kind of just moving on because if Matt Favola had come back and won that fight, I think we're talking about an extremely viable case of Kyle Nelson challenging it and it just becoming a no contest.
Yeah, I have to ask, what do you do in that situation? Is there anything to be done once you've identified, like, yeah, there was a mistake by the referee? Do you just have to start the next round? Or I was hearing some people talking, being like, if they look at the thing afterwards, if there was something they could do mid-fight, is there nothing to be done really in that situation? You just got to keep going?
They can make a no contest for
Yeah.
sure if there was some sort of really bad error on the part that kind of affects the fight in that way. No contest is certainly available. It's kind of the easiest, cleanest thing because it had nothing to do with the fighters
Hmm.
themselves. You can't disqualify anybody, and you can't really make it a finish
That's what I was alluding to.
retrospectively.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. It's off the table. So you're talking about making it a no contest mid fight, and I think the best thing that happened was it did just keep going. You know, if after all that happened, the best case scenario was they just kept fighting.
Hmm.
If they need to make it a no contest because Frivola wins later, they can, Frivola's, well, not Frivola, but Kyle Nelson's camp can certainly challenge it, and I think they would have grounds enough that actually would get overturned. We don't see a lot of appeals successful. This almost definitely would be,
Yeah.
I would think. So, no, I think they did the right thing from that terrible mistake. You gotta hope Dan Miragliotta doesn't let this happen again. Because he's not the type of ref that stops fights early. If anything, he lets people go a very long time. People have gotten hurt on his watch. It's not a good look. I've seen amateur fights in the past where bad things have happened. You just kind of let it go, and that's not the right thing to do, especially at AMI.
Hmm.
So, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here for sure. But yeah, very, very bad job, and I think he knows that.
Yeah, well, in his other fight, someone did get hurt in a very not fun way. Kevin Holland got hit in the groin by Mike Malott, and
Not his fault that
not
that
his
happened,
not his
you
fault
know.
that that happened. No, but there was no point taken away after 5 minutes of Kevin, um, basically writhing in pain. But that's not really what irked me. My I texted you when this happened. I was like screaming at my television basically because I did not want that next, or I did not want the fight to continue because you have to
Mm.
get a yes from a fighter if they're visibly hurt and the referee is asking if they want to continue and they don't give you an answer, not even a nod of the head. You can't continue that fight. He's still grabbing onto his cup and very much in discomfort. He did not look like he wanted to continue, even when Dan said yes,
Like you
go.
said, he didn't answer directly.
Yeah,
That was the real key part there, and this happened even between rounds too. He does the same thing. He offers him, "Do you want to fight?" And he's not answering. So
yeah,
realistically, stoppages could have happened at those points, and then they figure out what to do with the official decision. But he wasn't answering the bell. He wasn't answering the referee's commands. You're right. That was not a good look by Dan Miragliotta either to let it keep going. He's basically like pleading with him, just keep fighting, which is
yeah.
not really the job.
You can't do that as a referee. That's not. It's
No.
yeah. I really didn't like it. And then also in between rounds, he's like just letting you know, like if you don't continue, it's gonna be a DQ. Like you're gonna
Which
lose the
is
fight.
wrong. He misspoke. I think he
Yeah.
did misspeak there. Um, and he knows better. Like he knows the rules.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can't inform the fighter the wrong thing. That's
Yeah.
not going to work.
So that's not good either. And then it's a stark difference from what we saw in the Drew Dober fight too. Also, as I mentioned before, in the Mike Malott Kevin Holland fight, no point taken away. And
Yeah.
in the Drew Dober one, there was a point taken away after a certain amount of time. And I've been hearing people like, this is
There was a direct kick to the
yes,
illegal area
yes, right to the
in
cup.
that one at distance, right? Whereas in the Holland fight, it was kind of a knee from the clinch up the middle. He's not necessarily see exactly where it's going. He probably thinks he knows where it's going to go. And the foot or the lower leg, one of those hit the cup very clearly, while the knee also landed. That was what happened in those two. Yeah.
Yes. But one thing that I do want to just make a point on before we get out of here is I've been hearing a lot of people talking about it being like, oh, he didn't take a point away even after X amount of time. And I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I feel like you have to make a decision on whether you're going to take a point either if the ref saw it like with his own eyes and knows exactly what that looked like, or pause, take a look on the replay, see what happened, and then you make an informed decision. You can't just be like, because they're lying on the ground for 4 or 5 minutes, that's what convinces you to do it. Because if you do that, then you're just kind of welcoming fighters to take more time trying to get points. You know what I mean?
There's a ton of leeway for an official in regard to how they take points and when they take points. I mean, as long as nothing's happening, they're certainly welcome to think it over as much as they want. We don't know exactly why he
Sure.
took it, So there's not necessarily that. It took a little while for referee John Cooper to take a fight from Drew Doper in that fight,
Yeah.
against Kyle Pripolek. So I then you heard people on the the commentary team on the broadcast, they were like kind of hoping a point would get taken, and then it took a while, and then they took the point, and then they complained about how long it took to
Yeah.
take the point. It's like, guys, take your win. They're allowed to go through the process and do this. Allow the official to do that. I don't think John Cooper did anything wrong, and ended up taking a point, rightfully so, for a strike that was obviously reckless, not necessarily intentional, but damaging and reckless, and you take a point there. And in terms of with Mike Malott and Kevin Holland here, I think absolutely a point is warranted here because we're looking at a fighter who is almost definitely going to be diminished from this. If you are landing an illegal foul and it's going to change the way they're able to fight from then on, you take the point. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. You can even take two. It's allowed. You
Yeah.
can do that. We don't see those 2 point fouls very often, and look, they're devastating to a fighter's chances of winning on the cards. Referees are loath to do that. Even 1 point is a lot. But I think here it would have been warranted. And frankly, that would have created, in retrospect, a 28-28 draw, which I think would have been pretty representative of the fight. I would have rather have seen a draw from a point taken here. I think that was the right call, and it didn't happen.
Yeah. Fair enough. Alrighty. Well, this will definitely not be the last time we talk about a referee decision that does not please the masses. So we will continue to do our adventures in officiating. Scott, why don't you take it away for quick hits?
Not too many quick hits this week. Got Yair Rodriguez. He just underwent hand surgery this week, ESPN reported, and he won't be cleared for full contact for 2 to 4 months. You figure him not being able to fight till like maybe late March, maybe later, and that takes him out of the running for an Alexander Volkanovski featherweight title rematch next in the early portion of next year at the very least, if that is when the champ returns. I don't think any. I think as many people were starting to get toward Daniel Lerone Murphy anyway, so this is probably just okay. We're heading where we're meant to anyway. Malcolm Wellmaker, who we've mentioned a few times in the recent weeks, he now finally has a new opponent for UFC 322 per reports. He is now going to meet Cody Haddon after his opponent withdrew. So Wellmaker back on for a fight at the Garden in our neck of the woods. And last one is Jalen Turner ended his mini retirement. He is going to fight Edson Barboza at UFC 323 in December, just 9 months after he had ended his fight career following a loss to Ignacio Bahamondes. So MMA retirements are back in style.
All right, all right. And Scott, let's
Or
get
out of style, as it is.
yeah, yeah. But let's get into the final round, and we're gonna wait for Eric to come back for us to go over our homework assignment. One of us also didn't really get around to it due to
I
mismanaging
was
their
not going to
time.
say anything, but appreciate your
I
full
have to
candor
be
with our
honest.
audience
I
here.
have to be honest,
All
but
right.
it's my excuse. Eric's not around either to talk about. I want him there. So we'll also push off the next assignment till next week. But let's really quickly go through this week in MMA, and let's do one more fight to people for people to watch outside of the big, UFC PFL stuff. So Scott, why don't you take it away?
Well, this week in MMA, we're going back 21 years to the day when 19-year-old Nathan Diaz won with a triangle choke in his MMA debut at WEC 12. That was October 21, 2004. Uh, he is now 40 years old, if you can't do the math, by the way. He
Wow.
matches my age. And then yeah, like you said, we're gonna do one more fight is kind of a new thing that we're gonna trot out here. Basically just highlighting another fight outside the UFC and kind of some of those bigger PFL cards and that kind of thing, cards that might register outside of just regional kind of level stuff. Um, Particularly ones that you can find and watch, right? So that's the goal here. So where I picked this week is China-based JCK MMA. They have a tournament semifinals going on at both 125 and 35 pounds. And those 125 pounders in particular, they're well ranked on the world stage. If you go by the rankings on Fight Matrix, they're both top 100, or all four of the fighters, I should say, are in the top 100 at flyweight. So I'm gonna do my best with these names here. There's a few Chinese names I'm not as experienced with. Chi Yong Zhou is fighting Zayundin Sulaimanov, and Jaffa Shang is facing Ni Jadan. So those again, really, really high level fights as far as the flyweight division outside of the UFC. If you're looking to watch those, JCK Fight Night 108 Starts at 7 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube. By the time those fights are on, it might be around the same time as the prelims. So
Yeah.
like maybe you can watch both. Watch one on your phone, watch one on your television there.
There we go. And Scott, I have to applaud you on your pronunciation there. That was pretty good. I mean, I don't speak.
Well, we'll wait for our Chinese listeners to let me know. Oh yeah, you did a real bad job. Or hey, not too bad.
Yeah, there we go. Alrighty, Scott, thank you so much for joining me. Eric, I hope you enjoyed your time off, and we will see you next week.